Lesson 43, page 106, 107, the primary chords in C major. The three most important chords in any key are the chords built on the first, fourth, and fifth notes of the scale, or the first, fourth, and fifth scale steps. These are called the primary chords of the key. The chords are identified by Roman numerals 1, 4, and 5. The 5 chord usually adds a note, a seventh above the root, to make it a 5-7 chord. So, in the key of C major, the 1 chord is C major. The 4 chord is F major. The 5-7 chord is G7. It's a G major triad with a seventh above the root. Now, think back to when we did all that stuff. You did it in G, you had an F sharp. So you've done this stuff before. Remember that? So, the theory behind that now is, if you remember the lesson that we covered this stuff, I talked about something called inversions, where you're taking the top note and putting it on the bottom, or the bottom note and putting it on the top. So, this is the 1 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the 4 chord. That's the 5 chord. But it says you're adding a note a seventh above the root. And we're on a G. So that's a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. So, remember the lesson about triads a couple lessons ago. We were doing stacks of thirds and skipping a note, right? That's a G triad. G to B is a third. B to D is a third because they skip a note. So check this out. We're just going to add another third on top. That's it. That's how you find the seventh. It's the root, third, fifth, seventh. Or root, third, fifth, seventh. Now you'll notice I'm not playing 1, 3, 5 because then I have no finger to play the F. I'm playing 1, 2, 3, 5. So that is the theory behind the G7 chord, a major triad with an added seventh. And the 1, 2, 3, 4 chord is F. But what we've done so far is that. But let's take a look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. If we take this C, hang on, my dog wants to come in, sorry. Come on, buddy. If we take the F chord and take this C and put it on the bottom, look at that. C, F, A. That's the 4 chord in what's called second inversion, but we aren't going to worry about remembering that right now. But in the book, they just tell you the top note of the 4 chord is moved down an octave. Well, that's true, but it's called an inversion. So we have C, F. Now, we just learned about the G7 being stacks of thirds, because you skip that note, skip that note, skip that note. But what we've played is this, GFB or BFG from the bottom up. So let's figure out what that is. If we take the G and move it to the top, you're going to have B still, D still, F still, and G on top. So when we do this, we have the B still, we're skipping the D, playing the F and the G. It says the D is usually omitted. All notes except the root are moved down an octave. It's because we did this and then move the G to the top, omit the D, move it down an octave. So that's the theory behind what we've done so far and all that. So it's the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 1 chord, the 5-7 chord, and the 1. You have to call this a 5-7, because if you just called it a 5, it'd be that in inversion. But by having the F and omitting the D of this G7 chord, it is still a G7, and you have to call it a 5-7. So 1, 4, 1, 5-7, 1. That's it. So if you look at the exercise on the bottom of page 106. But I didn't. You'll notice that was in bass clef. I did it with both hands. It's just a good practice. You've done both these chords in both hands before, so practicing this and understanding the theory behind what's going on in both hands isn't going to hurt you. Now let's look at page 107, all about the blues. I personally love me some blues. So music called blues has long been a part of the American musical heritage. We find it in the music of many popular songwriters and ballads, boogie, and rock. Blues music follows a basic formula that is a standard chord progression. You will learn a lot. You will learn the formula for Got Those Blues. If you learn the formula for Got Those Blues, you'll be able to apply the blues in any key you learn simply by applying the formula to that key. The most basic formula of the blues is it's a 12 measure box that gets repeated over and over and over. And if you listen to some John Lee Hooker, some Muddy Waters, some Eric Clapton, some B.B. King, some Jerry Lee Lewis, some Little Richard is blues. It's a form that all these musicians are playing, and there are lots of ways to modify the blues. But we're going to get the basic formula or the basic constructs or parameters. So it's 12 measures. The first 4 are all the 1 chord. Then it goes to the 4 chord for 2 measures. So far we're halfway there. We have 4 measures on the 1, 2 measures on the 4. That's 6 measures out of 12. So after the 4, it goes back to the 1 for 2 more measures. So now we're 8 measures in, and we've only had 2 chords. We had 1 for 4 measures, 4 for 2 measures, 1 for 2 measures. Then it goes to the 5-7 for 1 measure, the 4 for 1 measure, and ends with 2 measures on the 1 chord. So again, I'm going to play these as whole notes and count it along, and it's going to be the 12-bar blues. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. The second measure of the 1 chord, third measure of the 1 chord, and 4, 2, 3. Now the 4 chord, 1, 2, 3, 4. Second measure of the 4 chord, 2, 3. Back to the 1 chord, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3. Now the 5-7 for 1 measure, 2. 4 for 1 measure, 3, 4, and a 1, 2, 3, 4 for 2 measures, 2, 3, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, so far, what we've learned with eighth notes is that they are half of a quarter note each. And when you have two of them together, they both added together the length of a quarter note. So if we look at measure 1 of Got Those Blues, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. But the way they play the blues is with what's called swing eighth notes. And that means you play the first one a little bit longer and the second one a little bit shorter. It gives this kind of lilt to the music. And if you think of a circle for the straight or traditional eighth notes, but you got an oval for the second ones. The bottom and the top of the oval are your longs and the sides are your shorts. Long, short, 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 long. You can almost think of this like a horse walking slowly. So, Got Those Blues, it says moderately slowly. You have forte with then second line diminuendo or decrescendo to piano. And then in the third line you have a crescendo back to forte. And then it ends forte. You have a ritardando at the very last measure. And long, short, 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 long. Now, remember it starts long. It doesn't start short, long, short, long, short, long, because that would be... And that doesn't feel right. It's long, short, long, short. Long, short, long. So it's important that you're clear on that. All right, pause it, practice it, and when you unpause it, I will play it. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, make sure you do the staccato markings. Remember, that's not popped, it's just short. Instead of, here was, if I did the first measure with no staccato, compare that to the second measure where I will do staccato. See the difference? So make sure you're following all the staccato markings, all the dynamic markings, the crescendos, diminuendos or decrescendos, the ritardando, the fermatas at the end where it hold longer than written. All those things are important. So, look at the little red Roman numerals underneath your music. If you look, you have a red 1 under the very first measure, and then nothing in the second, third, and fourth measure. That is the first 4 measures of the blues. It's 4 measures of the 1 chord. Your left hand is playing a C triad. Now in measure 5, you have Roman numeral 4 under the 4 chord, the F. Then that's 5 and 6. Measure 7, the beginning of line 3, there's the Roman numeral 1 for 2 measures. Well, it's written once, but it goes for 2 measures because there's nothing else written again. Then you have measure 9, there's 5, 7. Measure 10, 4. And then measure 11 and 12 are the 1 chords. So that perfectly follows the formula in the pink box at the top of page 107. 4 measures of the 1, 2 measures of the 4, 2 measures of the 1, 1 measure of the 5/7, 1 measure of the 4, 2 measures of the 1, that's 12. All right, any questions, let me know. Take a look at the music. We've got page 106 and 107.